Now, a foundation can set a goal. Supposing you have a smaller foundation with only a few billion to throw around every year. That's a small one. And that's got one task to change. Supposing it was to change all of us into women or something, all men into women. This is a topic here. They could say, well, this might take 3 generations. So they can employ, hire, retire, employ, hire, retire, and fire and all the rest of it, but keep on the same agenda for generations as they change society's mores, morals, and everything else, and viewpoints until they get what they want. So that one thing can be achieved. It doesn't change. It's there regardless of political parties, regardless of wars, or anything else you think might interfere, but they don't interfere. And they get the job done. Then you have the big foundations with trillions to slush around on all these pressure groups, all fighting for whatever is going to destroy the old to bring in the new. And then they're funding, many of these foundations fund hundreds and hundreds of other foundations. They just put the money out there, you see. Tax exempt too, of course. So we're going through this, as I say, and people still think they can go and vote and somehow it's going to change something. Your politician is not going to mention the NAFTA morphing into the Trans-Pacific Partnership when it's election time. Your local one won't do it either. So what's the point? They'll talk about jobs, unemployment, because everybody's worried about surviving, education. Of course, now they're bringing in different rights for different minority groups and so on, or they'll create new minority groups and didn't know there were one, and that's how they do things. They keep you focused on other things, but they never ever talk about the big plans they have for you down the roads. They're often not even implemented by them, so to speak. They're implemented by bureaucracies that are functioning as almost separate governments today. They create policies. Not laws, but policies, and then it's implemented, and that's that. You're also prompted to change your opinions on things by very careful psychologically prepared documentaries, and very repetitive ones, all similar to change your way you see something. And of course, and the way to do it is simply by the omission of another side of any story. That's how you bring someone to the desired conclusions. And then when your peer group starts parroting it, and they've even done all the studies naturally as to what classes adopt it quickest, and they found the ones who have the most education are quicker to adopt new policies and new ways of being, behaving, condemning, or whatever it happens to be. We are the most studied species on the planet. It's incredible. Incredible. And the public are kept so busy or worrying and scurrying that they don't even know that most of what they think is their mind is not theirs at all. Their opinions are not theirs. Their behavior isn't even theirs. Even their hobbies often aren't theirs either. They're approved and pushed. Stuff that was known thousands of years ago comes from a small elite who understand these sciences, because sciences like this to do with manipulation of the human being are never lost. They're so valuable. They're more precious than anything else on the planet. Once you have that under wraps, you can get all the people working for you like slaves. And you can take most of their income from them and live higher than they'll ever imagine. That's what it's about. Now, those at the top, as Albert Pike said, it says, make no apologies for nature. And by that they mean social Darwinism to an extent, where they're clever, cunning, and in the laws of nature, the jungle, they end up at the top because they're ruthless and cunning and intelligent. They know how to manipulate people, sway the crowds, get them to follow, even into wars and all the rest. Actually, I shouldn't say follow, because these big boys who plan it all never go to war themselves. They just reap in the benefits. In fact, I've mentioned all the different quotes from people like Kissinger and so on, who said that the American soldiers are dumb, stupid animals who are used for foreign policy. Now, I'll tell you something, though. I don't disagree with what he said, actually. because they're certainly dumb and stupid, because to get the most basic propaganda as to why they should go off and kill people, they don't know. Very basic stuff. And they never know the full agenda, and unfortunately they don't even care about what the real agenda is, because they're very young guys. One soldier told me that it seemed to him, he was brought up in Britain, but he said one day he was like running around the trees with his pals playing cowboys and Indians, and before you know it, there they are with the real thing and the weapons and all that, being more macho and like the movie stars, and all emulating fiction, you see. And that's why they pick young guys. During World War I, at one point when they had the big lines of trenches across the country in Europe, there was a stalemate. So many had died, they were just throwing in hordes of people, wave after wave, from both sides, until they were getting mowed down with machine guns that had to come on line, basically just in time for that war by Mr. Vickers. He was made Lord Vickers for that contribution to slaughter, and his counterpart who helped, I think he lived in Switzerland, and they made them in Switzerland and sold them to both sides. Henry Maxim. So they sold a version for the British and the French, and another version for the Germans. And I could go on with all these stories too, but I won't bother. But the fact is, they found that they came to a stalemate in the trenches for about a year or so. Now they did their surveys, and came the early behaviourists, and they did their surveys to find out why weren't they still jumping into their trenches and doing heroics and slaughtering people and getting killed. And they found that the guys who were mainly left in the trenches after regiment after regiment were getting slaughtered were a bit older, a few years older, and they're a bit wiser, and that their propaganda and their childhood mentality was disappearing. They realized that bullets, unlike even the early movies and the black and white silence, didn't miss the good-looking guys, and didn't miss guys who were nicer. No, they killed anybody at all. So the hero didn't matter. There's no heroes with a bullet heading towards you. It doesn't happen that way in reality. Young guys were still full of, again, their heroes and all the novels and stage plays that they'd seen. And if you're brave and all that, then and very gallant, bullets always miss you. So what they did, they spent about 6 months training new recruits in Canada, and they fed them the most horrific stories about the Germans bayoneting babies and all that stuff, which they always rehash every so often. And they tried that with the Iraqis too, later on too, with Kuwait. But anyway, and sure enough, they trained them, and they got, and these young guys were given them tremendous brainwashing and stories about heroism, and they came in, and sure enough, they put them in the trenches, and they ran off by the herds to get slaughtered again too, and get the whole killing thing going again. That's how perfect this system is. That's how perfect it is. If you're looking for honor in that, don't look to the guys who are above you manipulating it all, because there's no honor at all. None of whatsoever. And we are the proles. We are the pro, like George Orwell said, the proles don't count, because the proles don't know reality. They really don't know reality. And young guys, having a tribal instinct naturally, want to be warriors, so they always pick the young guys to go and do all the slaughtering, so the old guys can reap the benefits, and the taxpayer pays for the cost of it. That's the real world we live in, and geopolitics and everything else. Always on the go. Always on the go. And believe you me, when they bring in their world system and there's no more foreign enemies to fight, they always have to have terrorism all throughout the system. Same with the Soviet Union. Once the borders were all closed in the Soviet system, then they had to get an enemy at home to justify the massive police state that they had, an authoritarian system, and keep the people terrified. So you had counter-revolutionaries at home. Today in the West is terrorists everywhere apparently. Old techniques, repetition, repetition, repetition. Now I'm sorry to prattle on like this, but I don't prepare my talks, as you all know, and I'll just spout off the top of my head about things and say how things really are, without getting you all panicked and terrified and and focusing you on, or look here in the world today and be very, very afraid, folks, or look there and be terrified. What does that achieve? What does that accomplish? Apart from disabling you. You have to find out who you are. It's a difficult job for a lot of people who've never clued in till later. Because you almost have to dismiss everything you ever believed in. Certainly, the way that you believed in things has to be looked at again. Absolutely. Because there's not an organization out there that isn't used. Many knowingly and other ones unwittingly. Because to be a follower, you can be set up to be a patsy. Just being conned itself means you're all patsies if you just follow, and never question. I've never known a country or this system or this agenda to falter by guys just yelling their outrage at something. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. It's maybe a minor safety valve to blow off steam. That's all it accomplishes. Yeah, we told them, yeah. So what? Like they don't know? What do you do in this system? Well, can you be in the system? But you have no option but to be in the system, so at least you can come to the understanding of the forces behind it all. How tremendous work goes into manipulating you on a daily basis. Tremendous work. And making you conform to the general herd, as they say. Awfully important. That's why everyone's spied on. I keep telling people who give me the pat answer, well, I don't care if they're looking at me, I've got nothing to hide. Well, the fact is, even that person is of awful great interest to all the statisticians out there that are constantly running tests on us all and quantifying this group and that group and who will belong to. How can you put this person in any group at all? Blah blah blah. These ones are safe. These ones are on the border, in the line. Yada yada yada. It's incredible, and all the academia is on board with this, getting huge grants from the big foundations again to do all these studies. And your government goes along to allow all this information from the NAC be handed over to them, the high professors and so on. They're making a fortune at this to make sure that you stay, safe and pretty stupid and predictable. You can't run a world unless you're all incredibly predictable. And even the Joe Blow that says, I don't care, blah, blah, I'm doing nothing wrong, if he does something out of the ordinary, they want to know why. Why is he suddenly looking at this? Why is he suddenly reading these articles? Why, you see? Because that gets added to your personality profile, updated, and they want to know. And it's so easy for them today because look at your cluster of friends and all these sock puppets that you yap to, and they see where it's all going. With you. They've got to know where it's going with you. You must be predictable. And if you're not, they want to know why. Down the roads, you will have mandatory psychiatric visits, either to a place you're told to go to or they'll come to you. They talked about this almost 100 years ago in George Bernard Shaw's day when they started up the Fabian Society. There's nothing new under the sun. There really is nothing new under the sun. What is maybe newer is the more perfected system of information gathering on you, observation, and the techniques employed are literally so. It's instantaneous across the world. They're all getting the same news, authorized news, same prattle, getting their minds shaped to believe everything in the proper way, the ones that are authorized. And at the moment you've got some dissent here and there, but you have no real opposition to anything because opposition, as the communists always knew, had to be organized. That was their big scream at one time when they went into a new place, organize, and they'd organize them. And when they joined that system, you joined a communist system, you had to go along with every part of their agenda, even the stuff that made you uncomfortable or you didn't agree with. You had to learn all the slogans, and you listen to all these commies and they parrot the slogans. They can't argue with you on things, they just parrot slogans at you. And they jump into critical theory and smear you because they can't answer you. And they won't. It's a religion, you see. But they did know how to organize incredibly well, because it's a very old system, even before you heard the term communism, or even Lenin for that matter. All worked out long before that. And all these techniques are used by what you think are sides, all sides, because all sides at the top work in common to the same goal. Most are oblivious of it,